I mentioned that I was an anarchist in the video before the last one on prisons, and I thought I'd go into what that means, as well as what that means as it pertains to me specifically, what kind of activism and organizing I take part in, and how I view social and economic justice. In my own terms, and in the terms of many others, anarchism as a philosophy is more than political and more than economic. Fundamentally, anarchism is an opposition to unjustified hierarchy, unjustified authority. Mainstream anarchist thought throughout history has manifested this philosophical disposition by placing its advocates at the forefront of labor struggles. Most anarchists throughout history have thus been opposed to capitalism as well as the state. These two institutions, whilst not being the only ones that anarchists wish to dismantle, tend to be at the forefront of anarchist discourse and theory. It would be impossible to recount all of the anarchist arguments against capitalism and the state, not that that would be necessary, as the burden of proof as to why a type of authority ought to exist should always rest on the authority. But I do recommend that people check out certain writings and videos so as to rid themselves of certain systems of indoctrination which convince them that power structures ought to remain intact. First off, libertarian socialist Rants. He makes videos about anarchism, also known as libertarian socialism. One of his video series, which can stand as a pretty decent introduction to anarchism, is a playlist called My Political Beliefs, consisting of the case against hierarchy, the case for liberty, arguments against anarchism, and achieving an anarchist society, all of which I recommend you watch. I'm reading it off my screen so I didn't forget the video titles. Several people throughout history have put forth detailed and eloquent critiques of capitalism. Some relevant texts, not all of them anarchist, include the Communist Manifesto and Capital Critique of Political Economy by none other than Karl Marx, as well as What is Property by Joseph Proudhon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Generally, some good writers to read so as to get a glimpse of anarchism are Noam Chomsky, Mikhail Bakunin, again not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Emma Goldman. My anarchism obviously dictates a lot of my political behavior. For instance, I organize with industrial workers of the world. I try to support local strikes with support, solidarity, coffee and donuts, and I participate in direct action even with non-anarchist groups when I think that it may be beneficial, for instance with Black Lives Matter. And perhaps most surprisingly, as an anarchist, I vote in every single election, local and otherwise. I think that being an anarchist allows me, in my daily life as well as whilst organizing, to watch out for, in myself as well as in others, authoritarianism, abuse of power, manipulation, and social climates which breed party lines. I also think that my anarchism gives my leftism a kind of intellectual legitimacy. You know, anarchism to me confronts a lot of the hypocrisies of contemporary progressivism and liberalism on issues like gun control, labor, and this elitist obsession with the so-called excess of democracy. Once I started reading about anarchism, it resolved a lot of the lingering questions that I had had about progressivism. And I think that these days, I feel much more comfortable calling myself a socialist than I ever did when calling myself a progressive when I was younger. So, that was a very quick video. It's not meant to convince. There are plenty of other places for that purpose to be carried out, which I have listed, many of which I have listed. Peace.